The sun is always shining inside Elliot's loft. Yeah, nice and bright. Set the energy mood. Yeah, all the time, even when I'm not around. But I just happen to be around right now. Who am I? I'm Mark Elliott. Happen to be the host of When Black Men Talk. Been doing this for quite a while. And as you know, always, I'd like to thank you for doing what you do. Give me an ear. You know, start to think about people in a sense. Yeah, you give thought to people. And we come across a different brand just about every day. But the ones that consistently move with integrity, empathy, compassion, and aiming to benefit others, we call them good people, a good person. And I'm happy to welcome in for the first time in 2026, this young lady back to the loft, Lady Dr. Marcy Baptiste. How are you?
Well, hello, darling. I'm wonderful. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well.
Well, what's so funny?
It's just the way you where you are sometimes. You know me, I love to laugh. Laugh is my medicine. It just sometimes, man, we just have that where I bounce off each other, and I find something in the system you say just tickles me. It just does. It just does, and I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful to have you here. How you been?
I've been well. Lots of moving parts for 2026 already. So I'm excited to be back on the show. And I know we've tried to do this a couple of times, and my schedule has conflicted and so forth. So I'm glad we were able to get together today.
Sounds good. Yeah, your schedule. We wait for your schedule. We wait patiently. We sit in the corner. We just wait attentively. And when you're ready, we're ready. That's how it's always going to be. Just keep that in mind. When you're ready, we go. That's it.
All right, then.
I'm going to talk about love, Dr. Marcy, because love is a powerful thing. It really is. It's used to basically influence. It's used to sell. It's used to make someone feel good. But, a lot of time love is misconstrued. It's misunderstood. It's given a bad name. It gets a lot. It really does. It goes through a lot. And sometimes I think we kind of forget what love really is. But you and I do a segment of When Black Men Talk, basically on the common ground. And usually it's basically as a male and a female, we're kind of given different sides of a male or female side, trying to meet in the middle. And this episode is going to kind of be there too, but it's going to be a little different. But what I want to do is kind of look at love in a different way. Maybe not in a pleasant way to some. It's not going to be that greasy, gloomy fantasy type of love. But in actuality, love's a powerful driving force for the brain with dopamine. Yeah, makes you feel good. It really does. But the question I'd have to ask, there was a song one time that was a big hit. Remember, love is stronger than pride? Because love tends to me battles pride. It really does. They tend to, from time to time, put the gloves on. So if I was to say to you, Dr. Marcy Baptiste, is love really stronger than pride?
Ah, boy. How you gonna come out the gate swinging? Is love stronger than pride? I would say no, from the standpoint of both of them are emotions, and so I feel like in many ways our emotions are all kind of on the same level, and we turn them up or we turn them down, dial them up, dial them down, whatever the case may be, as needed. And I think it's just a matter of what we let drive our choices. So in other words, love can drive a decision, or pride can drive a decision, ego can drive a decision, anger can drive a decision. So from that standpoint, I don't feel like one is necessarily stronger than the other. It's what we choose to allow to lead.
Yeah, I agree. I think some may find it interesting to say that pride is at times stronger than love. And in reality, pride would be stronger than love based on your actions, your thought, your movement, in a sense. And one thing that we kind of sense about relationships, but we don't really kind of talk about too much. We won't put on the kitchen table. But in a lot of relationships, once things get past the early entry point where you meet someone and things start to kind of settle in a little bit, it seems to become a power struggle. It seems like for some reason or not, a power struggle starts to basically just shows its head. And in reality, that's the mentality we're applied first in most relationships, male or from a female perspective. And it seems like the one that basically tries to garner the pride, tries to garner the power, that one tends to take the apron of pride and pull it out the furthest. Your reaction?
Well, I think that people think that they're in relation with this one person and they're in relation with that person and all their previous experiences. And so I think that cupcake phase is that phase where a lot of times we just fail to ask the important questions. We fail to find out how do people deal with, you know, struggles. How do they deal with disappointment, or how do they manage emotions? How do they manage a disagreement? Um, and so I think that's where that power struggle comes in, because you think through the cupcake phase that you're getting this type of a person, but you have never really faced or come up against anything that conflicts the whole, oh, I love you, you love me, the whole Barney stage where everything is all good until it's not. And then when it's not, then I think that is where you kind of come into that power struggle, because everybody's coming from a different, two different perspectives, not really realizing how the other person communicates or so forth and so on.
Yeah, it's interesting enough because I think reality that's ideal and that's how it should be. But the one thing about that kind of jumps out at me is that if one was to ask realistically, and this is coming from a male perspective, I'll take a male perspective on this side. If I was to ask, and I should, and I'm not saying I never have, how do you handle X, Y, Z? Do I really trust them to honestly tell me how they do? Because to me, their actions are going to show me. Life will happen. And no matter what you say, that sounds good. Because I think in the early stage, most people are going to gloss over, they're going to embellish to kind of get around that. But once things start to really settle down and things start to happen and life presents itself, you're going to show me just about everything I need to know. And I think that goes both ways. But I think a lot of times we get hooked on, if we do ask, they say, well, then what that does to me, that pushes us further to believe there's something that they're not. And might be disappointed, a little later on. So I always kind of pull back and say, yeah, situations will come, and your trueness. You can sell yourself as much as you want, oversell, and we do a lot of overselling. We just love to oversell. But your trueness of how you handle certain things and basically will start to show me how you handle it is connected back to your past. And, a lot of times people speak like I'm disconnected from my past. I forgave. I'm over it. Those are great words. But a lot of times your actions will show you're very connected and you're still living there in the past.
Yes. I agree wholeheartedly. And you're right. I think that not everybody's going to be transparent out the gate. I don't know if you've watched it. There's a show on Netflix called Age of Attraction. And it's some sort of reality show. Basically, they're trying to demonstrate that age is age really just a number, basically. Like, can you find love in, these extreme age gaps? And so I was watching that the other day, and one of them, the couple had a 33-year age gap. She was 27, he was 60. And in that little cupcake phase, leading up to the whole, oh my God, I just love him. I just love him. I just love him. But then to your point, once they, kind of left the cupcake phase of being, set apart from society and day-to-day living, and they were thrown back into what real life was potentially going to look like, it all fell apart. And exactly what you said, people were not 100% transparent. So she had told him that she values celibacy, and he had withheld the fact that he has children her age. And so, I mean, that's some big things, right? So she had told him
Yes.
about the celibacy. He said it wasn't a problem. They get into the real world, and her idea of celibacy basically is we're not going to have intercourse. We're going to do everything right up until the point of penetration, is what it sounded like. And so there's this one scene where he's talking about, but you think you can just grind on me and you can get yourself off, but you consider that celibacy. That's not celibacy. So, and then from his standpoint, she had asked him about kids, and he said, yeah, I still would like to have kids at some point if I'm in, this relationship and da 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 da. So everything he's saying leading up to that is, I don't have children. Then after they're in the real world, there's a scene where he's talking to the guys, and he was like, yeah, I have kids. Matter of fact, one of my kids is, her age or a year older than her or something like that. She's over telling the girls, yeah, no, he said he wants to have kids and like he doesn't have any yet. I'm just like, jeepers, this is not, I mean, I didn't think it was going to work anyway, because 33 years is just a little bit too much, I think,
Mm-hmm.
from a lived experience point. But needless to say, they broke up very, very quickly in the experiment. And it's exactly what you said. Like, you can ask the questions, but it's going to be reliant on the person to give you an honest answer. And at the end of the day, you might have met the representative, but at some point the real person is going to show up. And if the real person can't, you know, withstand the talk that the representative laid out, then it's going to fall apart anyway. And it has really nothing to
Yeah.
do with love. It has a lot to do with, I think, the person individually and what they think of themselves and how they value relationships. And
Yeah.
people call love when it's not really love. It's infatuation or lust or curiosity or lots of other things, but it's not really love.
Yeah, dopamine is a strong thing there. That dopamine, when you're feeling that and you're attracted to someone, that's some strongness right there. I want to venture into this, and we can actually do a show on this, but I'm just going to put this in a question for now. And do we really value honesty, or do we
Mhm.
value more hearing what we want to hear?
Ooh, is that a question or that's for later?
No, that's a question for now, and we might take that. We might take that and spin that to another episode. But based on what we're talking about right now, I think it fits. I really do, because
Yeah.
for me, from a man's perspective, a lot of men will look at a woman and things are rolling well and in early stages, correct? And they want to basically not hear anything that's going to sink the battleship. So she can say something that's probably not true. And you're taking a roll with it because you want to keep moving forward, because you're attracted to her. You like where you are right now. So they're kind of to me, where the question comes from, do we really value honesty, or do we really want to kind of hear what we want to hear?
So I would say in my teens, 20s, 30s, and shit, I'm sad to say, even into my 40s, I think I was definitely one of those people that I wanted to believe what I heard. Let me put it that way. I wanted to believe what I heard. Um, and then I would do what I needed to do to try and make myself right or make the thing be true. And now I'm very much more so on I really truly value honesty, even if it hurts my feelings. I had a relationship once. He told me he would never lie to me. He would always tell me the truth, even if it hurt my feelings. And we're still friends to this day, because he always stood true to that. And he trust me, he hurt my feelings several times.
Hmm.
But I could always know and trust in that if you said something to me, I don't have to second guess it. I don't have to question it. And that you're acting in my best interest at all times, even when it's not what I want, and I didn't fully appreciate the value that that friendship and that relationship held until many years later. And I look back on it now, like I said, we're still really, really good friends. But yeah, he told me many times things that I didn't want to hear, and I would debate it up and down, because I wanted to be right, or I wanted what I wanted to look the way I wanted it to look. But now I definitely do value honesty. I think there is a transition or a shift that you have to take in your personal journey to kind of get to that point. I don't think naturally we're built that way. Our brains are wired for us to be right and to get what we want and for us to be happy. So we fight for that even when it's not in our best interest.
I remember months ago, actually a few years ago, and I heard you say this, and I knew then, I knew what I knew. Jesus is on the main line telling what you want. And I knew then, I knew then that the conversation really can just be what it is. It's Dr. Marcy Baptiste and myself, Mark Elliott. We do a form of common ground, or we do common ground. This is somewhat of a form of common ground. And I'm going to take that question, Dr. Marcy, and I'm going to, pin it right there. Because I love a lot what you said, but one thing that you said that really jumped out was hurt feelings. So we really go into honesty at another time. We kind of build it around hurt feelings. And I think that is really the foundation why a lot of people aren't totally truthful, because they try to avoid that right there. But coming back to pride, an interesting thing about pride tends to create emotional distance, whether we think about it or not. But it does. It creates that emotional distance where, you're pulling apart in a sense. And to me, this is really huge. It prevents vulnerability. And the crazy part about pride in a relationship form, it basically stunts one from apologizing. Simply saying, I'm sorry, and meaning it or feeling it. But don't even get to the point of thinking about it, feeling it, because they're so wrapped in their pride. So we both kind of referenced earlier where pride at times, or it just could be seen as pride is really stronger than love, because we all carry around some of a pride level. And for those that carry too much and their pride is too strong, there goes pride being stronger than love. Your reaction?
I still don't think that it's stronger. I think that it can be, I think both can be very disruptive. I think both, if mismanaged, can be destructive. I think both can serve you well when managed properly. So I'm standing 10 toes on, I don't think that it's stronger than love. I do feel like they're on even grounds. There's a driving force, and figuring out what's driving us. And sometimes pride is going to drive, and it's going to disrupt love. And sometimes love can disrupt pride. So you can be in a relation with a very, very prideful person. And if the love is strong enough and genuine enough and selfless enough to be able to break through that shell, then it can disrupt pride. So I don't think from that standpoint that I can honestly say that I feel like pride is stronger than love. I feel like they're at times opposing forces, but I feel like love can override pride sometimes, and vice versa.
Well, I believe they're opposing forces, and yeah, they kind of take turns. But on average, I'm gonna say pride is beating love. Damn, it's beating it down, Lady Marcy.
Because you a man and you prideful.
If you say so. Yeah, I've been a man for 63 years. Sure. Yeah, I just think that even some of the things I just mentioned, I think that vulnerability, and that applies to men. Men have a tough time really being vulnerable. But I'll say this, though. I don't know. I think men, I'm going to step out and say, I believe men are quicker to apologize than women. I just believe that we are. We will basically own up and take accountability. There's that word again.
Mm.
So we tend to, will own up. Now, the vulnerable part, we haven't basically worked on that to perfection or close to perfection, because we tend to want to overall try to be stronger or portray ourselves being strong in situations where we don't need to be strong. So we come off basically not able to tap in and dive into that vulnerability. And we'll sell ourselves, well, I experienced that before with us in the past. It's not current day. So we'll play around with that quite a bit. But usually if we're wrong, for the most part, we can apologize and move on. And I like it where, again, we're love and basically, they kind of battle each other. And when I say it beats love down, it's because love should just, to me, override pride. There should not be an essence where pride takes over love. So the mere fact that it can overtake love sometimes, to me, is beating it down. Because I can't really, truly, fulfillingly love you if I'm allowing my pride to get in the way of loving you. My pride should take a 10-seat back when it comes to love. And pride is, if it's ever close and it's ever overtaking, it's beating it down. And they should not even be in the same sentence, as far as I'm concerned. It really should not be. And I know we're human, but when you love, you should love, just love. It's that agape love. You should love realistically, and pride should not be nowhere in the surface. But, us being human and we're carrying these different emotions, we're carrying, as you said earlier, some things from the past we haven't really dealt with, we haven't really looked at honestly. Yeah, it has a chance to kind of basically move itself to the forefront. And it kind of lives there. But another reason to me that pride basically kind of really gets hampered and gets pulled along and, has, a lock and a key is because we look at ourselves as our own self-importance. Based a lot of times on who we are and what's really important to us. We don't look at what's important. I'm sorry, when I say us, I mean, as one, when we really should be looking at what's important to us. And if we do that a little bit more, again, pride to be pushed all the way back. And that's when when I say pride is beating love down, that's where I'm coming from. Because to me, it should be easy to basically, if I care about you, I'm feeling you, I'm into you, that should always be up front and love in the back. And some will say that sounds great or whatever, but is it possible? I believe it's very possible. I just don't think we work hard enough at it, my opinion.
So let me say this. I do think that for men, pride outweighs love, 100%. And the reason why I say that is I'm going to use the example of infidelity. Women, I feel, are more used to swallowing their pride and not as worried sometimes about how they're going to look if they stay in a relationship if they love the person. Where a man can love you to the end of the earth, but if there's infidelity, oftentimes their pride is going to intercede and say, nah, bro, you're not going there. She's not going to have us out here looking like this. Where I think women are a little bit more willing to sacrifice emotionally and sort of swallow back that pride for the sake of retaining the relationship, feeling like, oh, well, we can build past this, we can get past it, I can love you beyond it, we can go to counseling, da 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 da. And I think that for men, and I'm just using this as one example, but I think for men, that pride is like, yeah, I'm not doing that. What are my friends going to say? And then you've said even before on previous shows, like men are very visual. And so I think men visualize situations, not just infidelity, but just in general, that will allow pride to supersede their feelings for someone. And they're going to preserve, like it's a self-preservation, they're going to preserve themselves and forsake that relationship, even if they did really love the person.
Yeah, that's a good point. It is a good point. And as you were saying, and I'm trying to see, is it pride or is it, when it comes to that part of infidelity, is it pride or is it just that mentally can't don't have the capacity to handle it.
I think pride and egos tend to be very simultaneous with men, and I think they're a little bit more separated with women, and that could play a part in that. Um, but for those reasons, like I said, I'm gonna stand 10 toes. I don't think pride is necessarily stronger than love. I will say that I agree from the standpoint that once pride enters, yes, it will beat down love.
Yeah.
So from that standpoint, yes, I feel like it can stomp out the greatest of love if you allow pride to overtake emotion, common sense, you know, interfering communication, whatever, because typically pride is going to have you shut down emotionally and you can't fully love and you can't fully embrace a relationship or build a relationship without being, like you said earlier, vulnerable and being able to express emotions and having a culture within the relationship that fosters those things.
Now, I want to circle back to something I said earlier. Now, you might disagree with it, but why is it, in my perception, it's harder for women to apologize to a man?
Because we're not wrong, Mark. Duh. I mean, that goes without saying, right?
Yeah, pretty much. I was, I just figured I would ask anyway, though.
Nah. Because I do disagree with that, but you knew I was going to disagree with that because we've had that conversation before. Um,
Mhm.
Women do apologize. We apologize when we haven't done anything. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm like every time I turn around, I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. Somebody holds the door open for you. You didn't ask them to hold the door open, but they had to wait to hold the door open for you, and you walk through and you're like, I'm sorry. No, you're not. Like, stop saying you're sorry. And I
Okay,
think
but
women say we're sorry even when we're not. So then
oh,
we get to a point where it's just like, I'm not doing it anymore.
okay. Now I get that point of saying it, and you agree. I agree with that. Saying it when they're not sorry, they are prompt to, but to me, that's not saying you're sorry. And that's just feeling guilty. That's not saying you're sorry. Now, I will say this about holding the door. I will say this because if I'm going to hold the door open for you and you don't want me to, and you're not going to thank me, then don't walk through. Say no, thank you. Take the door yourself. Don't it's like eating a meal but don't paying for it, not paying for it. Don't walk through. Simple as that.
Oh my God. No, I
If
meant more so from the standpoint of now you expect me to run because you're waiting and holding the door. And I used to find myself like hurrying and shuffling and trying to run. Like, I'm not doing that anymore. I didn't ask you to hold the door. I will say thank you that you held the door. But if you expect me to run because you're now standing there with your arm against this door, I'm not doing that. Not doing that
okay,
anymore.
I get that. No, you shouldn't have to run, but no, there's no need to pick up speed. But you know,
Pick up speed.
there's no need to do that. Excuse me. Now, here's another thing that I think men or women kind of look at different when it comes down to being vulnerable, and pride could play a part of this. Um, Men will not simply say or avoid saying "you hurt my feelings,"
Hmm.
even when their feelings are hurt. We will, you know,
That's pride.
yes, we will basically where, from my perspective, a woman will let you in enough to know you hurt her feelings. But before, I turn this over to you, I think a lot of times they say that when their feelings not even hurt. That's just my
I
opinion.
was thinking the same thing. Weaponizing
Oh
emotions.
yes, 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 yes. I that I think men see that a lot to where they basically will weaponize it, and for the most part, um, not use it now. Okay, it worked. Why not use it more often? For the most part, it worked.
We took them cry on demand classes. I used to practice that when I was little. I was raised as an only child. And so, yeah, like I figured out what would work on my mom.
Whenever it worked on your mom, it got to work on everybody else now. Come
I
on now.
mean, it did for a really long time, but
Wow.
that's the point of that is the reason why I say that is because when you do that, that manipulation eventually bites you in the ass. Like
Yes.
it can only take you so far, right? It's gonna work the first time or two, and then anybody with a little bit of common sense and some backbone is gonna call you out on your bullshit. And so I think women do tend to do that a little bit more than men, a lot more than men. Um, and then that takes you to a whole other question, which could be a whole other show. Is that why men don't take women's feelings seriously sometimes? I don't know. I'm not a man.
Yeah, it is part of it. It is part because you realize that sometimes what they could be crying over, it's not really worth shedding tears. It's
Right.
not. And you develop, you see it play, you see that movie play so often in syndication to where you're like, you become numb to it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like a self-protection type of thing. And you realize the word you throw out there, manipulation, you realize it's manipulation. Because realistically, any man that really truly cares for his woman, the last thing he wants to do is hurt her. That's the last thing he wants to do. Even if he does something stupid that causes it, he doesn't feel good about it. He may not convey it. He may not, let it be known, and that's the pride and the ego as well. But no, so he doesn't want to feel like he's done something that caused you pain and hurt. But at the same time, if he feels like he hasn't done anything and you're just basically going off to kind of, play that role, yeah, you're going to get that shut down. But thinking about this, conflicts, I always felt like, people look at that as a bad word for the most part. Like, you ever seen couples that have been together, but we never argue. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. But conflicts, they should basically work to enhance the connection, but they tend to lead to arguments and again, emotional distance. So if that's going on, if it's not really working to enhance the connection, and it's working against the connection, it's basically leaving some arguments unresolved. And unresolved arguments, they come back up. If it doesn't get resolved, it's going to come in. It may not be the same argument, but it's underneath some other arguments. And emotional distance. At this point, when this is going on, which one is kind of taking more center stage, love or pride?
Well, first I want to separate conflict and argument because I have a very strong opinion and belief about that. Um, and I think people use them interchangeably, and I don't believe they are. So, from my perspective, conflict means we're on opposing sides trying to come to resolution. Argument takes you down a path of, I need to be right and you need to be wrong. And I need to prove that you're right or that I'm right and you're wrong, versus we need to come to a resolution. And so I think that's the difference. If you approach disagreements from a position of conflict, or if you approach them from a position of argument. So I'm gonna prove to you that I'm right. That's gonna walk down an argument path because now you're trying to make the other person be wrong. Versus I'm gonna approach this disagreement from a conflict resolution standpoint and say, okay, right or wrong, let's come to your favorite words, common ground. Where can we both win in this? And I think that's the difference in those couples that have been married for a really long time and they say we never argue, because they probably don't. They resolve conflicts as they come up versus just the back and forth. And then a lot of people don't argue fair. They don't argue nicely. So you're saying stuff that you've been harboring for 100 years because you got crappy communication skills. And so something that somebody did back in 1976, you bringing up in 2030, talking about, well, you did this, and like, wait, what does that even have to do with today? That's where arguments go, and that's why they go so south and so wrong. Versus managing conflict is much more constructive, and you can take some of the heat off of it, leave some of the emotion out of it. Like we're trying to fix whatever the issue is. It's us against the problem. It's not me versus you. And I think that's the difference. Conflict is us against the problem. argument is me versus you.
I love all that. I do. But it's almost like a thin line between love and hate. How close is conflict to argument?
Depends on how you play the cards. You know what I mean? Like, you have to, at some point in your relationship, decide when a disagreement comes up or we don't see eye to eye on something, how are we going to handle this? Is it us against the problem, or is it me versus you? And if I know that I want my relationship to be a lasting one, like the next relationship I get in, we go in the distance. Like, somebody's sitting by somebody's graveside. Like, I'm not redoing anymore. And so I know for me that it's going to have to be on the conflict resolution side of the spectrum. It's not going to be on the argue. I'm not going to go back and forth and argue with people over stuff. I'm not.
That's good stuff, Lady Marcy. Real good stuff. Very good stuff. Because, realistically, part of the reason why we argue because we get defensive. Feeling like you said, under attack, basically a form of protecting, and that's part of it. And even I would even say venture into saying even arguments, if even to go there, they still could be a form of enhancing the connection. I'm not saying one should argue, but I think when someone is saying something, if they're not trained to say it to hurt your feelings, and like you said, going back and pulling stuff up that's not really relevant, but we do that because those things haven't been addressed. They just haven't been dealt with. At least to that person that's bringing it up, and it's been left unresolved. But realistically, even if you're arguing, if we're hearing another person saying things that matter to them, we take it to heart, there goes the enhancement. And that's part of the conflict as well. But as long as we take what they're saying, and if it makes sense and we take it into our heart and we bring it into our hearts, I gotta believe we're going to enhance our connection. Maybe it might have been said fiery, whatever, but if you're saying something that helps us better, not just trying to attack or not trying to win, how could it not basically serve us well? A big part of love is, this might be outdated. I want to get your opinion on this because a big part of love is sacrificing. Sacrificing. When last time you heard that word, Lady Marcy? Sacrificing.
Every time I think about marriage and altars, like sacrifices are done on altars, and I feel like that's why they call it that.
Wow.
Now, people talk about sacrifice all the time. They say, you should sacrifice, anything for your relationship. Or you said, no, I don't believe that. I used to believe that. And like you said, I think that for me anyway, it's an outdated belief system that had me capitulating to a lot of things that conflicted with my integrity, that conflicted with my personal belief systems, that conflicted with what was in my own best interest for the sake of the relationship or for the sake of, making my partner look good or whatever the case may be. And so, I found myself even now still recovering from sacrifices that I made 20, 30 years ago. And, wrong judgment, not knowing better, like you can label it whatever you want. But at the end of the day, what it boils down to is I sacrificed and compromised and capitulated way too often, and for the wrong people and for the wrong reasons. And so, sacrifice can be beneficial in some aspects, but you got to be careful with it. Now I would lend more towards compromise.
Okay. I'm just curious. I hear that. I think sacrificing is huge. To me, I look at sacrificing in a form where if it's done for the person that you're with, that you believe at the time, and sometimes when we're away from someone, we realize that person really is worth what I gave. But at the present moment, if you believe in your heart that this person is worth it and you value this person and you love this person, sacrificing should be easy. It should be what it is. Now, it can turn into I sacrifice wrong based on, again, when you're away and you're thinking, well, no, if your heart told you at that moment, just my perception, the sacrifice, there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing. At that moment, at that time, you did what your heart was telling you to do. Now we can always stand back and, go back and with a magnifying glass and find reasons and be mad about something else that may have happened. But that's to me how I could let the past be the past, because if I did it at that moment, I trust my heart, I trust my feelings, I trust my discernment, I trust my intent, and I chose to do it. For me not to like it later, I could not like it, but I can't go back and say I was sacrificing wrong, because I was true to myself for what I was feeling. And a lot of times that's where I think we might get caught up, because we get something that happens in the past. It happened, with someone that maybe wasn't worthy of it. And now we don't want to do that anymore based on no. And sacrificing is a huge part of love. It's a huge part of, that intimate connection with someone. Because I want to feel that if I'm willing to sacrifice for you, you're willing to do the same for me. And if you're not willing to do the same for me based on because you sacrificed for some knucklehead 20, 30 years ago, it didn't work out, I'm not going to take too kind to that, because I wasn't there then. I don't want to pay the price for that. I don't really want to kind of hear that. You should drop that off a long time ago. But a lot of times we get caught up in that, male and female, to where what happened ago, we can't. And my thing is, if I'm in you, I'm with you, your sacrifice is going to come easy because it's going to come natural. And, once it's over, it didn't work out. I'm going to do my best not to look back and say, well, I shouldn't have done this. I shouldn't have done that. At the moment, I felt it. And I think one thing about love that gets overlooked, it's one of the greatest feelings we'll ever feel in our lifetime. I could say pride beats it down. Yes, but in reality, love is something God has given us all to feel. That emotion, that pure, honest emotion, that when we're in that moment and we're feeling it, there's not much more better than that. There really isn't. There's not. You can compare it to nothing else. You can't buy that feeling. You can't make it up. So when it's right, give it what it deserves. Give it what it truly deserves. If it doesn't work, you know what? At the moment, it was what it was. It just was what it was. I want to kind of take this a little different too, because
Okay, hold on. Can I say something though?
oh, come on, Lady Marsh, you never got to ask.
Okay.
Just tell me to stop talking. Go ahead now.
Okay, stop talking for a second. That felt really empowering. Okay, so no, what I wanted to just a point of clarification. So when I said that, I knew at the time that I was going against my beliefs. This wasn't I did it out of love and then I looked back and was like, oh, he was trash, so I shouldn't have done it. This was in the moment. I knew, like, yeah, I don't really agree with this, but I'm going to do it for this person. And so that was what I was speaking more so of, not looking back now, being like hindsight 2020, like, yeah, that was a bad decision, and I regret that.
Yeah.
But no, it was like literally in the moment, making sacrifices that I knew was going against what I believe and whatever. And, it took a lot of therapy to figure out why I would do such a thing. But yeah.
And I totally get that. I do, because, once you go against your gut, your intuition, that hurts harder. It just does, because you knew better. And realistically, you knew better. You chose to go against that. But even with that happening, and I know it's harder to come back from, but can that prevent you? And I'm sure you said this already, but is that going to prevent you from sacrificing for the man that walks up to you now, that truly deserves your sacrifice?
No, I don't think so. I think I'm just averse to the word sacrifice in relationships. I feel like that you can give freely without sacrifice. And so I think it's just a play on words for me. It's a mental roadblock I think that I have with the word sacrifice, because I feel like if you truly love somebody and that's something that you want to do for them, then it's really not even a sacrifice. Like, you just want to do it because you want to do it. Or you want to give it, or you want to, release yourself into that, or fall, freely into that. It's and therefore it's no longer a sacrifice. It's a gift. And so I think maybe that for me is where I'm kind of stuck on the word sacrifice. Like, I just really don't like the word. in
Yeah.
relationship to a healthy relationship.
Well, let me just say this. If you ever find out in your life this day for you're not sacrificed, you and I will have a conversation. Let's know that for a fact.
and will. I
You
ain't
know.
scared. Come on with it, Mr. Mark. What Dion say?
Oh,
I ain't hard to find.
oh my goodness. Okay. We're in 2026 that we are. Grateful to be here. Thanking God for it. We're living in 2026. There it is. Much more to have to be added to that. But we think of love, and we spoke for a good period of time. Love is stronger than pride. But this does seem like in 2026, 2025, 2024, 2023, 2022, 2020, and some years previous, that love may not have been stronger than money, Lady Marcy.
For the love of money is the root of all evil.
Yes. And when I say that, I'm looking at financial security versus emotional connection. And there was a survey done that basically stated that 50% of people would choose the security, or close to 50. I'm not going to say over. It was about 48, 49% would choose security over that emotional connection. Now, what does that tell us about love?
So we're all jacked up. We all still got like after effects of COVID, I think.
This going way before COVID. Come on now. COVID ain't no big deal. That was long before COVID. Long before COVID.
He's saying COVID messed up the world. We ain't been right since. All them darn shots and whatnot. But anyway, I digress. No, I don't know. I feel like as someone who has oftentimes in my relationships been the higher income earner and been the one to provide the financial security, I can say that I would value being in relation with someone who could take that role over for me. In other words, allow me to be the softer side, allow me to be the one who, was able to rely on someone else and not having to rely primarily on myself. So from that standpoint, I can understand the appeal of the financial security. But I'm also one for very much how do you treat me? So if I have to trade being treated well for financial security, I'm not doing that. I'm going to choose being treated well with kindness, respect, dignity, honesty, integrity. When I say well, that's what I'm referring to, over financial security. Because we can get it together financially, but you can't replace that emotional support and understanding and those types of things. Those are priceless.
Yeah. Interesting enough, I remember years ago, many years ago, that I told myself, when I was basically separated and going to and filed for divorce, the thought ran in my head, the next time it's going to be for money. It's not, love ain't got nothing to do with this. It's going to be about money. She's going to have to be doing X, Y, Z. And it didn't last long. That thought didn't last long. It just was a fleeting thought. And I caught myself with it. And I was like, no, you're thinking stupid. And ironically, a situation presented itself to me where it could have been that way. So many words could have been a kept man. And I'm like, So, and I look now where it seems like if you listen to a lot of and here again, I said, this was years ago. I'm talking 30, some over 30 some odd years ago. And close to 30, maybe 30. But if you look now, it seems like society, when it comes down to relationships are looking for a partner, there's more look for, and it's more on the radar, more under the microscope, the telescope, financial security.
Mm-hmm.
It's not emotional connection. And I know the survey says close to 50%, but reality, if you listen to what people are speaking and what they're saying, financial security. They want to go to bed with financial security. They want to go on vacation with financial security. They want to basically come home to financial security. And and I realize cost of things and inflation and all that, but that's where, to me, and it's been this way for a while, where we have lost track of what love really is. And I grant you want to be with someone that's financially secure. I totally get that. I'm not saying that should not be somewhat on the goal list, but we don't talk about, I want to basically be good to someone. I want to care for someone. I want someone that I can basically grow with, I can build with. We more talk about their financial security that they can offer me.
Mm-hmm.
What can I get from their financial security? And to me, it's part of the reason why there's the big divide between man and woman, and they're not coming together and becoming one. Because what man basically, I'm just speaking from a male perspective, realistically just wants to be with someone based on realizing, and some men are idiots, don't get me wrong, but the majority of men not going to really want to be close with you if you realize that you're closer to his financial security than you're closer to him. And there was a football player a little while ago, has 2 kids with the woman. They were scheduled to basically get married, and she went and signed a prenup. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
realistically, did she forget that he's the father of her children? That doesn't matter. It doesn't. So her not signing signing the prenup is more about financial than emotional. So it's just, when you look at it, it's that constant lean into financial. And that's on both sides. I'm not saying it's one-sided, but to me, that has basically diminished the drive, the pure wanting of that love.
I mean, it's hard to emotionally connect to somebody that you feel is only in it for your financial, for financial gain. So, I know the situation that you're talking about with the football player, and it's like, you wonder, outside looking in, what was that relationship look like if it crumbled over that? You know what I'm saying? Like, what did it look like all along? What were her motives all along? And it makes you kind of question, like, well, were you just in it for that? Or like, because me personally, I feel like prenups make sense. I feel like you should be confident in saying, especially if you really feel like the relationship is going to last, then why wouldn't you sign a prenup? Because it's never going to come into play. Like, so to me, people that argue about prenups and stuff like that, that argument doesn't really land with me. I feel like they make sense. They're a financially and fiscally responsible thing to do, just like a will or a trust. Like, it's a legal document that protects assets. It should have nothing to do with, like you said, the emotional connection. If that's there, the prenup shouldn't matter. That should be the least of our concerns.
Yeah. It's just we see it all the time. Not only on, I would consider that a bigger scale, but you see it locally.
Yeah.
Yeah, you see it where a lot of relationships are driven on financial security. And it's kind of become a dating thing. It's not dating to find someone to, emotional connection. It's dating to find somebody for financial security. Yeah. With that being said,
you see it in marriages though too. You've heard the term cheaper to keep her.
Yeah, but I
They're no
get
longer
that.
in love. Like, I just don't want to split my assets with you. So now this becomes a transaction.
Yeah, yeah, that's it. I'm gonna tell you that's a great song too. Don't get me wrong, but I never bought into that. I never bought into that. Pay what you got to pay that piece, bro. I'm serious. A
Right.
nice song, nice song, nice song. But I'm sorry, man. I'll say this: when I desired to do what I did years ago, all I wanted, talking about cheaper than keeper, all I want was my big screen TV and my clothes. That's all I needed. The rest I'll take care of.
It's definitely a guy thing.
That's
My
it.
big
I'll
screen
take care.
TV.
I'm good. My big screen, that's when they were the big ones you had to get two people to carry. Give me that, McClothes. I'm good. I'll take care of the rest. Because, there's no price tag on the mental peace of mind. The
Right.
mind. There is none. I mean, realistically, coming home and being happy, come home and being fulfilled. And those things, man, that cheaper to keeper, to me, and then men stand around and wonder why we die sooner. Why married men tend to die before, the married woman. Because you're sitting around trying to save money.
This is just really took a left turn. I don't think we can come
you
back
die, should live
from.
another 20 years. Yeah, what's cheaper to keep, bro? Right?
Oh man.
All right, later, Marsha, gonna put a close to this one.
If I
Yeah.
should. I don't think we can come back from that.
Yes, love is definitely something that should overtake pride. And love is not, it always is stronger than pride. And basically, we just had ourselves a good conversation built around that. And that's what I love about what we do here when Black Men Talk. We're inside the law. We basically take things and go from one side to the other. And sometimes we may push it towards the middle. There's nothing wrong with that. But hopefully sometimes when we have these conversations, we say something that you connect with that may spark you in one way or another. We appreciate you doing what you're doing by listening. And, God's going to always love you. We love you too. Take care of yourself.